Lil Wayne. Born Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. in the tough Holly Grove neighborhood of New Orleans, Wayne came up surrounded by crime, chaos, and Cash Money records. As a kid, he wasn't known for violence. He was known for being smart. He joined Cash Money at age 12, running with Juvenile, BG, and Turk under Birdman's watch. Early on, some fans claimed Wayne had ties to local Crip sets because of his neighborhood, but he never repped blue, not publicly. It wasn't until the mid-2000s that things changed. Suddenly, Wayne's whole image flipped. Around 2005, he was rocking red bandanas, using blood slang like Suwoo, and shouting out sets connected to Mac 10's Queen Street Bloods. That connection through Mac 10 and Birdman solidified his transition. When he went to Rikers Island in 2010 for a gun charge, insiders said that's when he officially became Blood. He was surrounded by OGs from New York sets, and by the time he got out, he was claiming harder than ever. A lot of people called it fake, that it was branding, not banging. Posts and forums from the time called him Hollywood Blood, but Wayne didn't care. He doubled down, throwing up signs in music videos and shouting out "Mob," which fans took as member of Bloods. Through all that noise, his career didn't just survive, it exploded. The Carter 3 sold 1 million in a week. Snoop Dogg. Everybody knows him as a Long Beach Crip, right? The blue rags, the doggy-style swagger, the Crip walks on stage. It's all Snoop, but rewind to the late 80s, and you'll see a different picture. Snoop grew up in Long Beach, a Crip stronghold. He was associated with the Rollin' 20s Crips, but throughout his career, he's been seen repping and collabing with Bloods. The confusion got deeper when Snoop started throwing up red flags during concerts in the 2010s, leading fans to think he switched. But according to him, it wasn't about changing gangs, it was about unity. In interviews, he said he was trying to show the Bloods and Crips can come together. Still, not everyone bought it. Some Long Beach OGs called him out for playing both sides, especially after he publicly praised Suge Knight, a known Blood, during his death row years. But here's the thing, Snoop never disowned the Crips, he just evolved past the set life. After being acquitted in that 1996 murder trial, Snoop turned into a global peace ambassador. From coaching youth football to smoking blunts with Martha Stewart, he became the symbol of how far a gangbanger can go without losing his roots. The outcome? Snoop Dogg transcended the streets without disrespecting them. He never stopped being Crip, he just stopped needing to prove it. King Von. He grew up in the O-Block section of Chicago, a faction under the Black Disciples, BDs. He was bred into that life. What made Von's story complicated was that even within the BDs, there were different alliances, and Von had beef with sets that used to be cool with O-Block. In his early teens, Von was actually affiliated with STL La EBT, a rival of O-Block. Old heads from the South Side confirmed in forums that Von used to hang with members from there before fully claiming BD. Once he switched sides and joined O-Block, though, he turned into a monster on the mic and in the streets. From 2011 to 2014, Von's name rang bells, not just in music, but in homicide cases. He caught charges for 2 murders and multiple shootings, though he was eventually acquitted. In interviews, Von talked about coming home different, more focused, more dangerous, more determined. That's when he linked with Lil Durk and turned OTF into a national brand. His switch from STL ties to O-Block solidified his loyalty, but it also sealed his fate. On November 6, 2020, Von was shot and killed outside an Atlanta nightclub after a brawl with Quando Rondo's crew. Von's legacy? Complicated but undeniable. He turned his gang identity into an empire, but couldn't outrun the code that built him. The streets loved him and took him back too soon. Quando Rondo. If King Von's death was one side of the coin, Quando Rondo was the other. His name became synonymous with controversy after that deadly night in Atlanta, and what came after looked a lot like a gang switch, or maybe survival. Born Tequian Bowman in Savannah, Georgia, Quando was a neighborhood Crip tied to the Rollin' 60s set, one of the biggest Crip organizations in America. He came up under NBA YoungBoy's wing, gaining fame fast with hits like ABG and Imperfect Flower. But the fame didn't shield him from the smoke. After the King Von shooting, Quando was instantly labeled the villain. Von fans, OTF affiliates, and even neutral rappers turned on him. Concerts got canceled, shows got shot up, and his crew had to move military style. The man who once shouted "neighborhood" in every song suddenly went quiet. His close friend Lul Pab was killed that same year in Los Angeles, reportedly in a targeted hit meant for Quando. That moment broke him. He told fans he was done with the streets, saying nobody got his back no more. He wasn't lying. The Crips had turned their backs on him for renouncing the set. The outcome? Quando's still alive, but haunted. He's proof that leaving a gang doesn't always mean escaping it. In the streets, walking away is sometimes more dangerous than staying in. Young Thug. Born Jeffrey Williams, Thug came up in Jonesboro South, Atlanta. Early in his career, he was known to affiliate with Sex Money Murder, a blood subset that dominated parts of Atlanta's South Side. He was close to Pee Wee Roscoe and Birdman, both tied to Bloods, and used that energy to build his image, slime green, red bandanas, and all. But Thug's affiliations didn't stay static. Around 2016, he started distancing himself from YSL's blood reputation, even though YSL, Young Slime Life, was considered a blood-affiliated crew by authorities. His public image leaned more toward being a fashion icon, entrepreneur, and creative until the 2022 RICO indictment hit. Prosecutors claimed YSL was a criminal gang tied to Rollin' 60s Crips and Bloods through alliances and conflicts. Thug's alleged role, the shot caller, but then something weird happened. In court documents, Thug's defense claimed YSL was not a gang, but a record label, and in the streets, some old associates accused him of abandoning the set when things got hot. That's when rumors started flying that Thug had switched, distancing himself from Bloods to save himself legally. Thug's been locked up since May 2022, awaiting trial. Whether you believe he switched or not, the facts show he moved from gang leadership to isolation, from the top of rap's food chain to a jail cell. YNW Melly. Born Jamel Demons, Melly grew up in Gifford, Florida, surrounded by poverty and gangs. As a teen, he repped Bloods, getting into shootouts and serving time before his career even started. But the YNW movement wasn't a gang at first. It was a brotherhood, a label of friends trying to escape the streets. The members, YNW Bortland, YNW Juvie, and Melly, were inseparable. Then came the night everything changed. On October 26, 2018, after a studio session, Juvie and YNW Sackchaser were found dead. At first, it looked like a drive-by, but police later claimed Melly staged the whole thing, allegedly shooting his own friends in the car and making it look like an ambush. When he was arrested in 2019, prosecutors said the motive was tied to internal gang conflict. That's the real switch. From brotherhood to betrayal. Melly's gang split in half overnight. Some stood by him, others cut ties, saying he'd gone too far. While locked up, Melly continued to shout out blood ties in letters and freestyles, but the unity that once defined YNW was dead. The aftermath? A high-profile double murder trial that turned fans into jurors. Whether he gets released or spends life behind bars, Melly's story proves one thing. Sometimes, the deadliest gang switch isn't to another set, it's when you turn on your own. Soulja Boy. Back in the late 2000s, Soulja Boy was the face of ringtone rap, but by 2012, things got strange. Soulja started repping Fruittown Piru, a notorious blood set in Compton. He was seen rocking red rags, throwing up signs, and shouting "Sue Whoop" on camera. Fans were like, wait, when did Soulja get initiated? Turns out, he used to claim Grove Street Crip, even referencing it during early mixtapes. But that affiliation wasn't deep. The blood image came when he moved to LA and started hanging with known Peru members, including Wack 100 and Chris Brown, both blood affiliated at the time. That's when Soulja began to reinvent himself from internet rapper to street legend. In 2017, things got wild when he started beefing with Chris Brown, another Piru affiliate. The fight, originally over Karueche Tran, turned into a full-blown Bloods versus Bloods circus. Soulja was clowning on IG, throwing fake punches in live videos. But when the real ones checked him, he admitted in an interview that his gang claims were for respect, not because he put in work. These days, Soulja Boy's switched back to what he knows best, hustling online. He's a meme legend, not a block legend. But his story shows what happens when internet fame meets hood politics. You might gain clout, but you lose credibility. 6ix9ine. He wasn't always a street dude. Before fame, he was a Brooklyn deli worker making YouTube videos. But when he linked up with 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods around 2017, everything changed. They gave him credibility, protection, power, and a gang image to back his loud mouth. In exchange, he gave them money, fame, and exposure. It was a business deal wrapped in blood ties. Then it all blew up. In 2018, after a federal RICO indictment, 6ix9ine got arrested along with 9 Trey members, including Shotty, his former manager. Facing 47 years in prison, 6ix9ine flipped faster than anyone in hip-hop history. He testified against his own gang, identifying members and confirming the inner workings of 9 Trey in court. Overnight, the internet crowned him the ultimate snitch. Memes flooded the timeline. The man who shouted Treyway was now reading off indictments. When he got out in 2020, 6ix9ine tried to reclaim fame, claiming he didn't switch, he survived. Still, no one in the streets respected it. The Bloods disowned him, and most rappers refused to collab. But somehow, Rich pulled millions of views on YouTube. The aftermath? He's alive, rich, and untouchable, but exiled. In the hood, his name's Mud, but on the internet, he's still a legend. Proof that in the modern era, even rats go viral. YBN Namir. It allegedly started with an Instagram live confession that had fans clowning YBN Nahmir like crazy. The Alabama-born rapper reportedly said that he went from GG to Crib. He wasn't talking about gaming, bro. Nahmir had just announced that he switched from the Gangster Disciples to the Crips. For a dude who started his career behind a controller instead of behind the block, the streets weren't buying it. See, Nicholas Simmons wasn't exactly born into the trenches. He grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, a city with gang activity, sure, but not the same intensity as Chicago or Compton. Back in 2014, Nahmir was mostly on Grand Theft Auto Online, forming the YBN Collective with Almighty J and Cordy. The trio blew up in 2017 after Rubbing Off the Paint went viral, a breakout moment that turned him from a gamer into a rap star overnight. But behind the fame, the group was crumbling. Almighty J was already saying Nahmir was pretending to be tough. Corday was distancing himself from the street talk entirely. By 2020, YBN had split, and Nahmir was trying to reinvent himself. That's when he started repping Crip sets, throwing up signs and videos, and talking like a West Coast OG. But switching sets ain't the same as switching styles. The industry saw right through it. His 2021 debut Visionland sold just 4,000 copies in the first week. EO51 Melly. Amir Golston grew up deep in the South Side's war zone, the kind of place where a wrong color or a wrong word can mean your life. Originally part of the Black Disciples, Melly was respected on the block, but never satisfied with just being another name in the crowd. After the death of his friend 051 Zico in 2017, Melly made a move that would change everything. He flipped from BD to 051 Young Money, a renegade set that mixed BDs, Black P Stones, and Mickey Cobras. That was unheard of. Overnight, he became BDK, a BD killer, turning on his own. Chicago drill was already violent, but Melly's switch turned it nuclear. Diss tracks flew back and forth, with rappers from O-Block and 600, sets tied to King Von and Lil Durk, calling him a traitor. He embraced it. His lyrics were pure venom, rapping about fallen ops and block murders with no filter. 051, Young Money became infamous, and Melly's name had weight, the kind that made people cross the street when they saw you. But being feared ain't the same as being safe. On September 1st, 2019, Melly was shot multiple times at a party in Chicago. Witnesses said he was ambushed. Rumors point to Zuzo7 Nate from Taekwon World, an O-Block affiliate, as the shooter. Blockwork. Originally part of Sugar Hill OY, a Harlem crew that included Sugar Hill Keem and Shaw EK, Blockwork was in deep with a wave that pushed Harlem drill into the spotlight. But that unity cracked when the streets started whispering that he was a snitch. After he made bail one time, word got out that he talked. Whether true or not, perception killed his rep. He started getting extorted by his own, dissed by Keem and EK, and eventually got kicked out of the crew. So Blockwork made the kind of move that only gets you more enemies. He joined 41, another Harlem-based group led by Kyle Rich and Jen Carter. That switch was like crossing enemy lines. Tracks like Naughty Bop, where he mocked a rival's death, only fueled more tension. By 2023, even 41 had distanced themselves from him. No one wanted the drama that followed Blockwork around, the betrayal, the disses, the switching. It all turned him into one of NYC drill's most polarizing figures. TikTok clips and Reddit threads call him the rapper who can't keep a set, but he still drops music. His fan base might not be huge, but it's loyal, drawn to his chaos. The aftermath? No arrests, no peace, just the constant hum of beef and distrust. EBK Nas. When it comes to EBK Nas, betrayal's not a rumor, it's the reason he switched sides. This Bronx rapper got backdoored by someone he called bro. Born and raised in Cortland, EBK Nas grew up surrounded by violence. He repped Cortland OGs, tight with guys like PJ Glizzy. But in 2022, that alliance shattered when PJ allegedly set him up and robbed him for a pound of weed. The whole thing played out like a hood movie. PJ even bragged about it on IG Live, basically self-snitching. Nas was humiliated, and once that happened, there was no going back. He left Cortland and joined DOA, dead on arrival, aligning with Set Da Trend and other Bronx drill figures. The switch wasn't about fame, it was about survival. He had to pick a side that wouldn't rob him again. But that choice reignited beef across the Bronx, especially between Oyogs and DOA crews. Diss tracks started flying, with lines aimed at his former brothers. Despite the mess, Nas kept pushing music. His tracks like Bunny in the Box gained traction, and his story even hit podcasts detailing his come-up. But the streets have a long memory. By 2023, he was facing charges, assault, threats, even a murder case tied to a drug dispute. As of 2025, he's still locked up, his name surviving through old snippets and remixes. Moneybagg Yo. Back in South Memphis, Demario White was a known face in the Young Mob, a local crew with deep street roots. South and North Memphis have always been at odds, but when Yo signed with Yo Gotti's CMG, Collective Music Group, in 2016, he effectively crossed the line. CMG reps North Memphis, rival turf. The streets saw it as betrayal. To them, he'd sold out, but to Moneybagg, it was strategy. The switch came with money, fame, and a cosign that changed everything. His hits, Waukesha, Time Today, Said Some, all came after the CMG deal. The same people who once called him fake were now quoting his lyrics. Still, not everyone forgave him. His old ally, Stupid Duke, who's doing time, called him out for selling out the hood. Posts and street rumors still reference that tension today. The continuation of that rivalry came through diss tracks and quiet threats, especially after Duke's crew dropped songs implying Yo switched sides for a check. But Yo never entertained it publicly. Instead, he doubled down on success, launching his label Bread Gang, signing artists like Big 30 and running up millions. The outcome? Respect, even from haters. Yeah, some still call him fake for crossing territorial lines, but when your music dominates the charts, your ops start looking like fans. Moneybagg Yo turned a gang switch into a power move, proof that sometimes the best revenge is getting rich. The Game. Born and raised in Compton, the birthplace of both Bloods and Crips, Jason Taylor grew up caught between both sides of the color line. His dad, George Taylor, was a Nutty Block Crip, while his mom was part of the Hoover Cripplettes. But somehow, Game ended up repping the Cedar Block Peru Bloods, and that switch became one of rap's biggest contradictions. Back in the early 2000s, Compton was split block by block. You couldn't even walk down certain streets if you were wearing the wrong shade of red or blue. Game grew up right in the middle of it. Foster homes, shootouts, and drug deals were all part of his daily routine. But in high school, something changed. He started spending time with Piru homies from the Cedar Block area, and slowly, he stopped rolling with the Crips he grew up around. It wasn't about music back then, it was about survival. Fast forward to 2001, Game gets shot 5 times during a home invasion, slips into a coma, and wakes up with a mission. He starts rapping. That moment was his rebirth. Within 2 years, he signed to Dr. Dre's Aftermath and releasing his debut album, The Documentary, one of the biggest West Coast projects since The Chronic. But when he started wearing red and shouting out Peru, a lot of folks from the Crip side, even people from his old block, started calling Cap, Be Real. Born Louis Freese, Be Real came up in Southgate, Los Angeles, a war zone where every block was claimed by either Bloods or Crips. At just 17, he joined the neighborhood Family Bloods, alongside his homie Sen Dog. The 1980s LA gang era wasn't no joke, it was survival of the most ruthless. But one night in 1988, Be Real's life almost ended. He got shot with a hollow .22, and the bullet punctured his lung. That's when it clicked. He said in interviews that the shooting made him realize how pointless it all was. He walked away from the streets, traded gang meetings for studio sessions, and started Cypress Hill, one of the most legendary rap groups of all time. Their debut album, Cypress Hill, went double platinum, and Be Real became a pioneer in mixing Latino pride, gang realism, and psychedelic funk. He never denied where he came from, but he made it clear he wasn't repping anymore. In interviews, he said that if he had stayed in the gang, he would have been dead or in prison. His switch wasn't from one gang to another, it was from the streets to sanity. By 2025, he's an icon in both hip-hop and cannabis culture, running his Dr. Green Thumb brand and performing worldwide. Proof that sometimes the smartest switch is walking away. Sen Dog. Born Senan Reyes in Havana, Cuba, Sen Dog's family fled to the US when he was a child, landing in Southgate, Los Angeles, one of the most dangerous hoods during the peak of the Bloods and Crips wars in the late 1970s and 1980s. Poverty, drugs, and violence were everywhere, and for young immigrants trying to fit in, survival often meant choosing a side. Sen Dog ended up joining the neighborhood Family Bloods, the same set his close friend Be Real ran with before both of them got shot at and nearly lost their lives. Sen Dog himself was arrested several times as a teenager for minor crimes, and by his early 20s, he was fully surrounded by the chaos of street life. But music came calling. When DJ Muggs started producing in their neighborhood, Sen Dog saw an escape route. By the late 80s, the three formed Cypress Hill, blending Latin roots, gangster storytelling, and smoky funk beats. Their 1991 debut changed everything. Tracks like How I Could Just Kill a Man and Hand on the Pump hit the charts while speaking raw truth about the streets without glorifying the destruction. Still, the streets didn't forgive easily. Some Bloods accused him of switching up, saying he abandoned the set for fame, but Sen Dog made it clear he wasn't switching sides, he was switching lives. Cormega. Born Corey McKay, Cormega came up in the Queensbridge projects, same place that birthed Nas, Mobb Deep, and Tragedy Khadafi. Queensbridge in the late 80s was a battlefield. Crack money ran the streets, and the gangs were split between Bloods and Crips. Cormega was rumored to have ties to the Bloods early in his life, but when he went to prison in the early 90s for robbery, everything changed. Inside, the politics were different. Survival meant choosing alliances. When he got out, he was reportedly running with Crips. The story's foggy, mostly built from street whispers, and his own lyrics on the realness and the testament. But even if half the rumors are true, Cormega's transition fits the pattern. Young, caught in the system, forced to adapt. After getting released, he refocused on rap, dropping independent classics that earned him respect even after his falling out with Nas. His music stayed gritty, reflecting the lessons from both sides of the color war. Forums and interviews call him one of the few who used his gang past to fuel maturity instead of madness. Today, Cormega's kept it low-key, focusing on family and his label, Legal Hustle. His alleged switch from Blood to Crip isn't celebrated or condemned. It's just part of the legend of a man who saw both sides and lived to rap about it. Blueface. Born Jonathan Porter, Blueface grew up in mid-city Los Angeles, but didn't get heavily involved with gang life until after high school. He originally associated with the Schoolyard Crips, a notorious set on the west side. The tattoos, the slang, the mannerisms, it was all authentic. He wasn't pretending to be from the streets, he really was. But when fame hit, his loyalty got tested. Once Blueface blew up in 2018, he started rubbing shoulders with rappers and industry execs far removed from his Crip upbringing. Then came his relationship with Chrisean Rock and the internet chaos that followed. He started hanging with Blood affiliates, including Whack 100, again, like Soulja Boy, and was even spotted throwing up mixed hand signs, which made fans question if he'd switched. Then, in 2022, during a heated live stream, a fan asked him directly if he still claimed. Blueface laughed and said that he was still from Schoolyard, but he just don't be in the hood like that anymore. Still, his presence around Bloods and non-affiliates had some Crip OGs side-eyeing him. By 2024, with court cases, relationship drama, and his OnlyFans reality show overshadowing his music, it was clear. Blueface had traded his set life for celebrity life. He didn't officially switch, he just stepped off the block. But for some people, that's the same thing. Fivio Foreign. Born Maxie Lee Riles III, Fivio grew up in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, repping Blicksky Gang, which was tied to Wu and Crip sets like Gangster Disciples. But as Brooklyn's drill scene evolved, alliances got messy. Around 2018, Fivio started hanging with Wu members, who are mostly Bloods and G-Stone Crips, and later began identifying more with that group publicly. The switch wasn't about betrayal, it was about strategy. When Pop Smoke came up repping Wu, Fivio saw the movement and joined in. It wasn't fake, it was unity under the Brooklyn banner. Still, fans noticed that his early affiliations with Blicksky, op rappers, faded away once Pop's crew rose. Diss Records and Brooklyn drill blogs called it a power switch. In interviews, Fivio has allegedly said, "We all Brooklyn, we all Wu, ain't no sides no more." But insiders knew that was cap. Behind the music, old beefs never really die. The move from Blicksky ties to Wu connections changed his entire image. By 2020, he was the face of New York drill, signed to Columbia Records, and running laps around his competition. The aftermath, the switch worked. It got him mainstream success and Pop Smoke's co-sign, but it also blurred his gang identity. These days, Fivio plays the diplomat, staying close enough to the streets to be credible, but far enough not to get caught up in their wars. If you enjoyed this video, click on the ones showing on your screen to enjoy more.